the lines of evolution, I also want to touch on how the community and ecosystem evolved over time. Like you mentioned that when you got involved, you did have a job and you contributed to the kernel on your own time and not as part of that job. Was that mostly the pattern at that time, that most people contributed on their own time? Or when you started, were there already people who worked on the kernel as a paid job?
When I started, people were getting paid already. Most of the people were getting paid. And then I got started paid. I got paid in '99 and worked on from then on. I was not getting paid to work on the kernel full time, just the kernel. It was always for my job, right? I think I can count on one hand the number of people that are allowed to just do whatever they want in the kernel. That's very rare, even still today. But I think 2003 or 2006, I graphed this. I said, what's the percentage wise? And at that time, it was over, I think 80% of the contributors were getting paid to do it. It was back in 2006 or 3. I'm not sure when I did that. And I've been tracking it with Linux Weekly News ever since. And it's been around between 80 and 85% of the contributors get paid. And the joke was you get 3 patches in the kernel and you get a job. And it's not really a joke. You get 3 patches and you get a job. And there's so much need for engineering talent to contribute to the kernel and not get paid for it is hard. So in a way, unless you're just doing some spelling fixes or you're just doing other types of stuff. Famously, we've had core kernel engineers try and retire and then they get hired again. So, things like that, or kernel developers retire and they just contribute documentation stuff and other work that they want to do as retirement. We have a number of ex-Microsoft kernel developers working on Linux now too, because they're like, hey, this is a fun engineering thing. We like doing this stuff. We're just going to do it in retirement. Wonderful. And usually they get hired. But yeah, so it's always been contributed, because Linux is something that companies use. I mean, hardware companies want their hardware to work. Famously, Dan Fry at IBM always used to come to me. I worked for IBM for a while. Say, is Linux done this year? And I was like, no. And then it took me 10 years to come up with the answer. It's like, we'll be done when you stop making new hardware. So, I mean, Linux worked for me a long, long time ago. Worked for Linus, what he said, 25 years ago. But everybody keeps coming out with new hardware and contributing. And so this makes our project pretty unique for software. Most software, you do a lot of development in the beginning, you solve the problem, and there's a long tail off of whatnot. Look at Kubernetes, huge, lots of development. Now there's a tail off of development, maintaining. It's good stuff to do, but you're not doing a lot of new development. Linux kernel development's gone up, and it's been constantly going ever since, because new hardware, new devices, new environments in which it's used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, we don't see any rate of change slowing us down at all. We haven't slowed down in 10, 15 years, which is insane. Our rate of change is so high. Yeah, it's a weirdly unique product that way. So, but it's being contributed by companies who want to solve a problem. We're a tool, we're a hammer. You contribute because it's cheaper to contribute upstream to the product, and then you get the whole package for free. I mean, I've been in meetings with huge companies and they say, the reason we use Linux. Somebody says, technically this good, and this is good, and all the community is great. And they say, no, it's free. So it's like, okay, yeah, it's free. And it costs them just so little to contribute what tiny little bit of change they need to make it work better for them. And they do, and away they go, and it works well. Hence, it's in my water meter, it's in satellites and automatic cow milking machines, mega super yacht stabilizers. Linux is everywhere now because of that. Make a tiny change, let it work for you, solves your problem, and away you go. But so no, it's been corporate driven, not in a way, for a long time, but that's good because we want companies to use it for things, right? So Telco got involved really early and said, hey, look, we can throw away all these really expensive sunboxes if we just tweak it a little bit and make things a little bit more robust over here and there, and away we go. And they did.